Alright, now let's take a look at an example. We know that function takes an input, processes it, and changes it into an output. How does it do it exactly? Let's learn by an example. What we have here is we have a function that multiplies the input by a factor of 2. So it gets an input, it multiplies it by a factor of 2. So what it does basically is input times 2, and that is our output, right? It gets an input. Let's say it gets 5 as an input. So it got 5 as an input here. And what the function does is multiplies 5 by 2 to get our output. So it multiplies 5 by 2 to give our output, which is 10. So all we did is we give 5 into the function and we got 10 by multiplying it by 2, by multiplying the input or 5 by 2. So we could say that we took the input. So we could say that we took the input and the function multiplied the input by 2 to get our output. So input times 2 is nothing but our output. Now, as I said, in functions, you can either just use numbers or you can use variables instead of numbers to represent those numbers. Here, we can do it too. X is usually used for inputs, right? That's what we did. We used X for our input here that goes into the function and gives us an output, or Y, which is nothing but input times 2 or X times 2, right? X goes into the function and gives us X times 2, which is nothing but Y. These are the same things. That's what a function does. It creates a relationship between input and output. It changes the inputs by multiplying it, by adding something to it, by subtracting it from something, by dividing it, and doing some kind of mathematical operations in the input to create an output. That's all the function does. And now from this function, we can make a table. How? Let's see. Let's say we write all our inputs on one side of the table and we write all of our outputs on the one side of table. Now, I don't have to remind you, you know that inputs are our x's or are generally represented by x, and outputs are our y's. And in this case, in this particular case, I know that our output is nothing but input times 2, or our y is nothing but x times 2. So I can say here that this is also x times 2, right? And now let's see how we can make a function table. Well, all I'm doing in the function table is putting values for x or putting values for inputs and getting an output. How does that work? Let's say for input, I put a random value. Let's start with 1. Let's say I put 1 as my input. And now my output, I know, is nothing but input times 2. So I can say my output is 1 times 2, which is nothing but 2. So if I explain it better, all I did is my input or my x was 1. And that 1 went into the function to give me input times 2 or the output, which is 2. Let's try it with a different number. Let's try it with, after 1, let's try it with 2. And I can say I put 2 as an input. This 2 will go into the function and will be multiplied by 2, as that's all this function is doing. It's just multiplying the inputs by 2. So it will multiply 2 by 2 and give me 4 as an output, or 4 as a y. Awesome. Now let's try other number than 2. Let's try a bigger number. Let's try 12. Well, if I put 12 as an input here, or as x here, and it goes into the function which just multiplies the input by 2, I'll be getting 12 times 2, which will be 24 as my output, or as my y. That's how we make inputs and outputs table. And notice here, there is no limitation of what number I have to put in as inputs. I can put any number. I can put 10, I can put 10,000, I can put 1 million, and it will work. There's no limitation. I can also put negatives, such as -3, -100, and anything, and it will have its respective output, which is multiplied by 2.